Which is Just Stop Oil protesters next. Are the sentences that were handed out to them too severe? 08085 909 693. Last year, 16 members of the climate protest group were each jailed for up to 5 years for their involvement in various demonstrations, including climbing gantries over the M25 and throwing soup over Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers painting. Their appeals were heard earlier this week. Supporters blocked the Strand outside and said the sentences were a sign of the corruption of democracy and the rule of law. Others, though, say their actions should lead to stiff sentences and they should be treated similar to people involved in last year's riots. Fiona Atkinson, spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Hello, Fiona.
Hello, Stephen. Thank you for having me on.
That's all right. And Sophie Corcoran, political commentator. Hello, Sophie.
Hello, nice to see you again.
What do you make, Sophie, then, of the sentences?
Well, of course, I think, they're entirely justified. And in your little preamble, you said how they accused it of being anti-democracy. But there's nothing democratic about forcefully blocking an M25 and holding everybody on their hostage until they give you what they want. We have a democracy in this country. It's called the ballot box, and Just Stop Oil and their supporters are more than welcome to stand for election and put their votes to the people.
Sophie, as you well know, Sophie, as part of that democracy for since time began, civil action and the likes of what we have seen them do has happened over the decades, hasn't it? Civil protest.
Protest is very different to climbing up the Dartford Bridge, the Dartford crossing. It's very different to destroying paintings. It's different to holding people hostage on the M25, stopping them from going to work. Those people have a right to go about their day without being disrupted by a bunch of overly posh vegans who are coming to cause trouble. So I think that...
But you can find, as you know, Sophie, you can find many examples in our society where when people have taken to the streets and protested, it has improved everybody's lives. It's held governments to account, hasn't it?
No, because Just Stop Oil have achieved absolutely nothing. What have they actually achieved? They're not the suffragettes, as much as they try and claim to be. They haven't actually achieved anything. They're just causing a nuisance. Nobody likes them in the political sphere. Most of the public dislike them. And they haven't actually achieved anything. This is just a bunch of very privileged people who have absolutely nothing else better to do in their lives than cause chaos for working class people who simply want to get on with their lives.
Nobody likes you, Fiona.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion, thank goodness. Still, we've got that, haven't we? To talk about the sentences, everyone who took those actions, they did it with their eyes wide open, and they're accountable. All of us in Just Stop Oil are accountable for our actions. After we've done what we do, we sit down and we wait to be arrested because we accept that we're in civil resistance. And we're in civil resistance because we're facing the biggest threat to humanity that we have ever faced. And we're also seeing the collapse of systems all over the place. We're losing our democracy. Our politicians have been bought. Your caller that was on just before past was brilliant, I thought, in talking about the corruption that we're up against. So Just Stop Oil have taken the action they have because our politicians have been bought by the fossil fuel companies. They've been bought by billionaires. And just let me finish my point, Stephen, if you don't mind. When you are like me, I'm a 69-year-old grandma, and I'm terrified for my granddaughter's future. I'm frightened for your future too, Sophie. I'm watching the floods and the fires all over the world. And all I've got, I'm not rich. All I've got is my voice and my body. And I am going to use the democracy I live in. I'm going to use my democratic right to protest against the continuing burning of fossil fuels, which is destroying all our systems in this world, especially the weather, and causing extreme
Let's let Sophie respond.
Events.
Well, look, I agree that you have a democratic right to protest, but you don't have a democratic right to smash paintings and hold people hostage.
Sophie, you really do need to brush up on your facts. There's no painting being smashed at all. There was minor damage to a frame. It was covered in glass. We do everything that we do as carefully as possible, and we go out of our way to be non-violent and to avoid damage?
Well, I mean, there is damage, though. Clearly, if you're smashing up fuel pumps and damaging paintings, you're purposely causing damage. You can't come and sit here and say you're going out of your way. You go out of your way to cause damage.
We don't damage things of value. A fossil fuel pump deserves to be damaged because we have to stop burning and extracting fossil fuel.
You are deciding, Fiona, it deserves to be damaged. I've interviewed representatives from your organisation before, and I've asked, how do you gather around each other to make a decision? What is the democratic process within Just Stop Oil? Who's the final arbiter about what is too far and what's not too far? And I haven't exactly got a coherent, definite structure within Just Stop Oil so far. So maybe it's moved on since I last interviewed you. So how does your organisation make a decision as to who to block, for how long to block them, for how much damage to impose on public artifices? Who makes the decision?
I thought I was here to discuss the prison sentences, not to try to outline to you how Just Stop Oil works. What we really should be looking at is what's not working right now in the world. And what's not working right now in the world, and especially in our country, is a lack of care and protection for ordinary people.
But let's say you want to go out and block a road. How do you know that is consistent with what Just Stop Oil wants to do?
I'm going to say it again, Stephen. I'm on your show to discuss sentencing for Just Stop Oil, the people of supporters of Just Stop Oil. I am not here to describe to you how we might make our decisions. What's of far more interest is how do our leaders make their decisions. What we're trying to do is affect their decisions. We're trying to get the message across to our leaders and to the media that the real concern here, the real issue, is how to stop the fossil fuel companies from destroying the systems that keep us alive.
I'll just point out, Fiona, you are prepared and you do want to talk about Just Stop Oil's objectives and who you want to take on and who you don't. You certainly do want to have a conversation beyond prison sentencing. But when I ask about the structure, about the democracy, about the how you make a definitive decision within your organisation, you're reticent to go there. And surely it is relevant if what you're actually about is doing good. Now, in terms
I think what your audience needs to hear from someone like me is why we do what we do. And why we do what we do.
Well, that's nothing to do with prison sentences, is it?
It absolutely is, because the motivation behind it, those people who are in prison right now did what they did because they're trying to stop the biggest slowdown. We can't stop it. We've gone past 1.7. January 25 is already down as the hottest January ever. And what this is messing up with all our weather systems across the world. You saw what happened in Spain. That was because of the heat of the Mediterranean. They got all that rain, and 200 plus people lost their lives in Spain. This winter, we have seen farmers all over the UK dealing with floods in the Midlands. The town of Tunbridge Wells, the Midlands, there's a town there where they have been flooded 7 times in 4 years. You've got insurance companies refusing to insure people's houses. This is real, Stephen. This is a real threat. And the people in Just Stop Oil, all we are doing is putting our bodies on the line, doing whatever we can to get enough disruption so that people like yourself will invite me on the show to say we have to stop oil and gas by 2030. Otherwise, it's a death sentence.
Sophie?
Well, I think there's a lot of questions. Firstly, you said in your first bit of speech that you guys are aware of the prison sentences that you're getting yourself into and that you fully accept the consequences of that. So first of all, why are you protesting then if you've already come to the acceptance that if you do this behaviour, you are going to get this consequence? Now, if you want to go ahead and do that behaviour, then of course you have to accept the consequences of it. They're massively flawed. But also, I think it's quite interesting that you don't want to answer the questions about, your structure or whatever, because you guys are very critical of politicians about them being bought out by fossil fuels. Who funds you?
Ordinary people. I fund Just Stop Oil. But Sophie, it's relevant to us
you
all.
get as much funding as you have done with just ordinary people.
I have no power, Sophie. I am literally I'm a pensioner. I have no power at all. When I join with my friends and fellow supporters of Just Stop Oil, we can take action that's disruptive, and disruptive action has a history of changing, of making social change. That is how the suffragettes got their vote. Nobody gave women the vote because they asked politely for it. We got our weekends because workers went on strike. We trespassed, and that's how we got public footpaths. So all the civil rights that ordinary people have been won by hard work and people prepared to put themselves on the line. And Just Stop Oil are following on with that tradition. And we'll be doing it in April 25. And anybody listening to this, particularly that wonderful gentleman who was on before the news, join us. We'll be in Parliament Square in April, calling out our governments and saying, stop oil and gas, tax the billionaires, tax them like mad, tax the polluters. Because if we tax the polluters and we get that money in, then we could put insulation in ordinary people's houses. We could reduce the price of public transport. We could get renewables properly working in this country.
Well, we're well beyond prison sentencing now, aren't we?
Well, that's the motivation, Stephen. That's why people have risked prison in order to take.
Have you ever been in jail?
I've not been in jail, but I've been arrested and I've been in court.
And what happened when you went to court?
I was found not guilty because I hadn't done the damage that I was accused of.
What were you accused of?
I put posters on the window of a politician in Cumbria to fight against the coal mine, to protest against the coal mine.
On their home?
No, on the politician's office window. And I was arrested. I was arrested in my home. But I accept that. I did that to call out the absolute folly of opening a coal mine. I mean, how crazy can we get? You've got actuaries, the Institute of Actuaries. They are the people, the money people who assess risk. And they are saying that if we don't slow down climate breakdown, we don't reduce emissions, the global economy, just listen to this, the global economy.
Actually, since Trump talked about drill, baby, drill, and the liquid gold under the ground, there's been a lot of positive market reaction in certain industries to that. Share prices have gone up. It just looks, when you talk about the negative impact of the fossil fuel industry, have a look at market reaction.
Have a look,
to what Donald Trump
at the
has said. He is literally talking about drilling like never before.
And that's short-termism, and it's terrifying. And a madman like Trump shouldn't be in charge of. I don't think he should be in charge of an electric kettle.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that you call Donald Trump a madman?
He clearly is.
Despite, well, you say he clearly is, despite the fact that he has got so many votes that he's now one of the most powerful men in the world with a mandate to be so. You have no mandate. You weren't prepared.
No, of course not. I haven't got a mandate.
But you weren't prepared to tell us about your structure. Well, you're a democratic organisation. You claimed that you would only talk about prison sentences, and you've gone well beyond that. And now are the people who vote for Donald Trump mad people too?
I'll talk about Just Stop Oil, and I'll talk about our motivation for why we risk prison sentences. That's what I'm prepared to talk about, Stephen.
Yeah, I would be very inclined to agree with you. Like I said, you have the opportunity in the UK to stand for election. How comes none of you have stood for election? You speak a lot about your dislike for wealthy people and millionaires, but are keen to forget the fact that you've had people like Dale Vince, who are very much in the wealthy category, donate to Just Stop Oil. You aren't going to tell me who is funding you. Don't tell us your organisational structure. At the end of the day, There are
I told
politicians
you.
in this country that have been given a mandate from the people to implement the decisions that they have. You haven't. You repeatedly break the law.
Well, you're
and
not.
Then you ask
You're not.
people,
You're
We're
not suggesting,
not.
Sophie, that
No.
people shouldn't protest, are you? You're not suggesting
No,
that the
I'm saying
civilian
that you should do
population
it.
should leave everything to the politicians. Where would we be if we did that?
No, I'm saying that we should, if you're protesting, do it in a legal manner, because I understand what you said previously about people like the suffragettes, but that only works if you have a cause that
Okay.
is actually
Well, listen.
good and genuine.
Well, listen.
Whereas
I
you
think
guys are more
I think you've
accused of the
given us
Southport
lots to
riots.
talk about tonight. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Fiona. Always good to talk to you. 0808 5909 693.